I sometimes wonder at where I got the courage to be that vulnerable and to be that open. But I don't need to know. I'm excited about that I can say that. I can just simply feel it and say, wow, I can't believe I did that, because now that I look at it, I look back and go, wow, look at that. That was me. And there was a transformation. We started the discussion talking about transformation. So there was a transformation I couldn't even have imagined that was possible.
Let me describe what I think is the history of your curiosity as you tell it in your memoir. And then if you agree, and that will be the context of my question, we can go forward. So I'm going to give you the context and just see if you agree with that. And a warning, it's a long context. Okay.
Okay. I'll take a drink of
So
water.
yeah. Hold on to something. The sequence of your life suggests an openness to genuine, honest curiosity and inquiry. By genuine and honest curiosity, I mean a desire to know meaningful information without a blatantly selfish ulterior purpose. For example, a con artist can pretend curiosity to seek information to manipulate someone, or someone trying to build a romantic relationship can pretend to be curious because it's flattering and because it makes a strong emotional connection. Or someone can be curious about sensational details of the scandals of others for no good purpose. That person is a snoop and a voyeur. But your curiosity is honest and genuine and does no harm. In your memoir, you manage your privacy with restraint and dignity. You open yourself to the curiosity of your readers, but you control that curiosity to be ethical, meaningful, and not simply invasive. In a way, maybe you're teaching your readers by your example how to be curious in an ethical, meaningful way. In the sequence of your personal history, there is an element of this type of curiosity as discovery. That curiosity, without a direct goal and without an interior purpose, led you to discoveries about yourself and about life that were unexpected revelations to you. You didn't expect what your curiosity would find. You weren't focusing your curiosity on the precise details you wanted. You didn't stay shackled to an education and to circumstances that trapped you in a life that you didn't foresee. You started work as a journalist with a degree in journalism. As a former journalist myself, I've always thought of being a journalist as a license to be curious and to ask whatever I wanted. As a journalist, you developed a career in ways you didn't anticipate. You discovered things you didn't expect. After being a journalist, you got your degree, you worked as a journalist. After that, you went back to university to do graduate degrees. At age 38, a year after you started graduate school, you found a connection with the writings of a mystic when you had no practical need and no career goal in that. You called it, in your word, indulgence, because it didn't seem necessary or related to your goals. It even took mental effort for you to make known to others your interest in the mystic. You started a PhD relatively late in life, when you were 44, and you completed the degree at age 50, when you changed careers again to start teaching at a university. At 50, you also had a near death experience, which was a revelation for you, and yet a revelation that you openly accepted. So, what I get out of this is the sequence of your life is maybe the mentality of a lifelong student of life who is open to changes and is receptive to change and discovers unexpected things. So that's the context for my next question. But so far, do you agree or disagree with that context, or would you add anything?
Um, I love that context, and I would totally agree. And what I might add is the double negative, that there are things I couldn't not do, that I've perhaps tried to talk myself out of, or other people tried to talk me out of, like continuing to study Teilhard at Rensselaer at a technical university. I had a friend in the program who told me I shouldn't be citing Marshall McLuhan in my work because his work wasn't considered serious enough and relevant enough to the field that we were in, which was communication and rhetoric and technical communication. And when I think about finishing my book and working on my book and folding in the life and ideas of Teilhard, it was something I could not do. I couldn't. I had to finish it. And there were moments when it got really hard, and but there was always a part of me that wouldn't let myself give up. And I think that's what you've put into a different context than I would.
Okay, so we agreed to the context. Okay, so my question is, in your book, you find a moment of what you say is, in your words, the joy of being a graduate student. I could indulge my curiosity. The next sentence after this calls reading Teilhard an indulgence. When you say that at a time that you've gone back to university at 37 and would finish your PhD when you were 50, that seems to epitomize the sequence and progress in your life. At a time when your consciousness could be growing more inflexible, becoming hardened and fossilized, your consciousness is open and changing and discovering things. At that time, you say, in your words, I could indulge my curiosity. So, my question is, can you explain what you meant by the joy of being able to indulge your curiosity? Why is that joy? What is that curiosity? Why did you feel unusual? Why did it feel unusual for you to be able to indulge your curiosity? And how would you give that joy in curiosity to your students and your children?
Um, I would, when I listen to the question, I think about some of the most wonderful moments of my doctoral work. And that was, I wrote a lot of my dissertation sitting on my bed in my bedroom. I didn't write at a desk, and I would be in the middle of the bed with my books and notebooks spread around me. I wrote, hand wrote notes. And there was something about allowing myself the space and the freedom to think these different ideas, to just let them roll around in my head, right? And perhaps just putting things up there and waiting for something to come to me, right? Which is, for me, often what writing is, right? I'm in many ways, a very physical writer, not just, I don't always like just composing first drafts on the computer. In a lot of my reporting, because I am older, I would write in little notebooks, right? And learned writing on a typewriter, right? So there was always a physical component to it. So the joy of just being able to explore and not know where something's going to go, to have the freedom to just watch and wait and be patient with what might come. And underneath that, I believe, is the belief that, and the trust. And that is the title of my memoir, Just Trust Life, that it's going somewhere. And I might say, just trust this process, that it will lead somewhere. And somehow the preconceived notion, as you're bringing forward, that it needs to be a certain way or look a certain way, just gets in the way of that journey. And I hope I answered your question.
Oh, of course you did. And what I now see is a consistency between the 3 to 5 year old having that revelation of self reflection, uh, um, the existence of other consciousness, that time of going back to school, from work and working on your PhD and having a same, maybe a more adult version of that freedom, of the ability to reflect, a freedom of choice, a pristine freedom of choice, and the near death experience. So I'm sensing a consistency and a continuity between all these things.
I'm thinking now too of the first graduate class I taught at Eastern Michigan. I taught a class that I designed myself, which was part of my contract, that I could come in and teach any class I wanted. So I taught a class called Writing in a Networked World to graduate students in the written communication program. And I remember coming home and driving home from the university was in Ypsilanti, and driving to Ann Arbor that night and thinking, wow, I didn't know how much I knew. I didn't know how much I remembered. That all the readings I had done, especially all the rhetorical study that I had consumed, was valuable in coming back to me, that I didn't need to work so hard to make it all come together. And I guess I'm going to use the word magic now, but there was a magic to, and a symmetry and a rightness to both that study and to the way I was able to transmit it to students, so students would be engaged and excited. One of the classes that I was able to teach, and a program I was able to introduce into um, the curriculum at Eastern Michigan, was media ecology. And I taught media ecology to both graduate and undergraduate students. And that's the study of media as environments. And it's I would say, an eclectic but important field. And finding myself as a media ecologist, landing there as an intellectual home, was a gift of this expansiveness and this joy and this continuing to be open-minded and not siloed or railroaded into a certain kind of thinking.
My next question, maybe you've already answered, but um, um, so you use the word magic, a sense of a magic consciousness. So, what do you mean by magic there compared to a consciousness that's not magic?
Perhaps magic's not the right word. I mean, um, one of my profound beliefs is that what we can't see, the invisible, we might say, is more real and I believe often more powerful than what we can't see. And words, ideas, books, theories, systems, perhaps freeze the energy of that in time and space. But embracing the joy, awe, wonder of the spaciousness and the energy that we intrinsically feel, um, to me, that's the difference.
Have I got this right that you might be describing a joy in knowing that you don't know?
Oh, exactly. Right. Right.
I mean, that's maybe that's what the experience of mystery is. That's what the experience of magic is. The joy and the awareness that you don't know.
Right. And one of the consequences of writing Just Trust Life and going through the both the writing process and the production process and having the book out in the world is the freedom that came from the vulnerability that I outline in the book that I'm still trying to wrap my hands and heart around. I sometimes wonder at where I got the courage to be that vulnerable and to be that open. Um, but I don't need to know. I'm excited about that I can say that. I can just simply feel it and say, wow, I can't believe I did that because now that I look at it, I look back and go, wow, look at that. That was me. And there was a transformation. We started the discussion talking about transformation. So there was a transformation I couldn't even have imagined that was possible, that I knew I wanted to do this thing, but I had no idea once the book came out what it's almost like having a child, like the life, it has a life of its own that's separate from me. That's exciting to watch. And I have 4 grandchildren now, and just witnessing, and gratefully they're still young, witnessing their changes and their growth, right? The parts of them that are just truly them, that came to the planet as just truly them.
Hmm.